American Computer Enthusiast Show. My name's Steve Reeves, and I'll be your host tonight. We have a great show. We're going to be showing Visio 2.0. We've got our guest Morgan. His name is Morgan Brown from Shapewear. He's a product manager. We've got some giveaways. Oh, actually, we're going to be giving away a Visio 2.0. The phone number is 861-6283. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Children are the largest group of Americans living below the poverty line. They have to reach higher for what others take for granted. Healthcare, balanced meals, encouragement to learn. But with help early on, children in your community can gain the skills to get out from below the poverty line. It takes programs like Success by 6 and people like you to help them take the first step. Call to learn more. Change the world of a child, and you change the world.
Vince, that new dummy cam is great.
Yeah, it'll sure give people a whole new outlook on what it's like when you don't wear a safety belt.
I think they'll get the picture.
You could learn a lot from a dummy. Buckle your safety belt.
She is one of America's toughest drug enforcement agents. Last year, she helped convict 90 drug dealers, seize several tons of crack and marijuana, and close down 10 major drug operations. She is a 68-year-old grandmother named Irma. She set up a community drug watch that is not only changing her neighborhood, but its future. There are many ways to help in your community. Call the Points of Light Foundation. Do something good. Feel something real.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the show. In case you just tuned in, this is the American Computer Enthusiast Show. My name is Steve Reeves, and I'm the host tonight. And it's a live show. This is, it's Thursday. Again, we're on Thursday for the second week in a row. We switched from Tuesday, so we don't want to confuse anyone. It's October 14th, Thursday night, and this is live. The phone number is 861-6283. You can call and ask us any kind of question you might have having to do with Visio, which is our topic tonight. Visio 2.0. Which is from Shapewear Corporation, and it's in Seattle, Washington. And our guest tonight is Morgan Brown. He's the product manager of Visio 2.0. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Steve. Glad to be here.
That's great. Why don't we start off right in the beginning? I gave the phone number so everybody knows what it is,
Okay.
but why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, maybe a little bit about Visio, a little bit about Shapewear.
Okay.
We'll give you 10 seconds to tell you
10
all that.
seconds, kind of my life story. All right.
I'll give you 30 seconds.
Okay. Well, I've been with Shapewear now for about a year and a half with a young growing company. That makes me one of the veterans. It's really exciting to be involved in a startup like this. Things move really fast. Before that, I was a network business unit manager in Central Europe with Microsoft, and then I did about 5-6 years with Siemens and their semiconductor group in Munich. Traveled around the world explaining how to use semiconductors for telecom.
So you're an international kind of a guy.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to do. So
That's great.
moved back to Seattle about 2 years ago, and like it there. That's where I grew up.
That's great.
Yeah.
What is Visio? What exactly is Visio?
Well, I think actually I'd like to start by explaining a little bit about where Shapewear came from, because I think that explains what we tried to do with Visio. Shapewear is actually an Aldus spin-off, and three of our founders, two of them were also founders of Aldus, and the other one was really the lead technical guy on PageMaker. And they felt that some sort of like the direction of Aldus was going towards designers and specialists, and they wanted to go out and do something for the mass market, sort of for the rest of us, for the you and me's.
Right.
And they decided that everything that was happening with Windows, there was a lot going on in graphics, and that there were really opportunities there. So their goal was, the raison d'etre for coming out here with Visio and Shapewear, was to produce something that would allow people to communicate with a computer using graphics.
Right.
And their goal then was to create a product well integrated into Windows that allowed people to do the kind of graphics they would do in a business environment on a daily basis. And to do that, they did a bunch of research and found, although there's some really great graphics products out there's no question about that, tends to be though the people that can use them efficiently spend a lot of time with them. They're very good at it. They have acquired the skills necessary to do that. But if you wanted to get a mass market product, the feeling was we had to get people who weren't going to spend a lot of time with those products, but were able to get in there and figure it out really quickly and efficiently, put the kind of graphics they needed. And needed to concentrate on the business stuff.
Right.
we found that when we went and looked at what kind of drawings they needed to do, there were things like flow charts and org charts and network diagrams and space plans and Gantt charts and sort of conceptual things like that. They didn't need to do a whole lot of freehand drawing.
Right.
What we heard from a lot of people was that they had tried other graphics products, and there's some, as I mentioned, there's some great ones out there. You can do fabulous tools, but in many ways that was sort of the nemesis for these business users. They would get what we heard again and again, a blank page. They would get 25 tools, 5 modes each.
Didn't know what they all did.
They would sit there in front of it and they'd try and figure out what was going on, and they would even spend an hour or more with it and then put it up on the shelf and said, I had a half an hour to figure out how to do this flow chart.
Right.
And that stays on my shelf. I walk down the hall and hand it to the guy that figured it out, and since everybody else does that now too, he's a specialist.
Right.
And that's what we weren't aiming at. We're
Right.
not aiming at the specialist. So that's where shapewear came from, and I think that's what Visio was. And I think it's a very experienced, good group of engineers. I've in my career been real lucky to be involved with real good engineers. I'm an engineer myself. And I think they'd been together with Aldous. Even a lot of them were together with a company called Atex before that. They put together equipment and software and hardware for publishing companies, thus connection into PageMaker. But they've been working together for a long time. They're very good. They started programming in Windows back with Windows 1.0. In many ways, they probably pushed the envelope of Windows because PageMaker came from the Mac, and they really said to Microsoft, who sits right across the lake, here's what we need to do.
Right.
And so that there's not too many programmers with that kind of experience and that kind of seniority. And I think having a good idea, knowing what they wanted to go after, and having usability really tied in with that, defined, not just the company and where we wanted to go, but Visio in itself. And I think with the success we've enjoyed in the last year, we feel pretty good that we've hit that on the mark.
Yeah, it's a great product. I know you sent me a copy, and so I could just play around a little bit, and I didn't even open the manuals. I love programs that I can use and just, I mean, I read the manual if worse, when all else fails, you read the manual.
Right.
But it was so easy to use. You just drag. I mean, you're going to show us exactly how it works. Why don't you finish, before we go and show it, why don't you tell us, everybody always wants to know, what are we using here?
Well, I got a great little laptop machine here that I got about 2 months ago. It's a compact 486, the LTE, and they have them now in 33 megahertz with about 210 megabytes of hard drive. So it's real nice, real sweet. I'm real happy with it. In fact, I'm going to get to try live the first time here doing a demo with my trackball. Because I forgot my mouse, but...
well, that's one good reason it's built in, so you don't have to carry the thing around.
And it's a good trackball, too, so I kind of like it. It's a nice machine.
And it is color.
It is color.
And we have it connected to a regular NEC 4FG.
That's what I'm looking at.
Monitor. And so why don't you go ahead and show us a little bit of how it works.
All right, let me explain a little bit right here what we're looking at on the screen. This is our program group and program manager, and we do things a little bit different right from the start because we heard so much about this blank page. We wanted to give people what they needed to do their kind of drawing right from the start, so that's why we have these different icons for different drawing types. So if somebody knew they wanted to do, for instance, a flow chart, they could go right on here, double-click on the flow charting, and then...
wait 1 second. I don't think it's up on the screen yet, is it? We'll let them zoom in here. But anyways, one thing, while it's coming up on the screen, why don't we talk a little bit about, just give the camera guy a second to bring it up. What does it take? What's a normal configuration for this software?
Okay, it's pretty much what you need to have Windows 3.1. In other words, you really need 4 megabytes of RAM.
Right.
And I'll say also for most graphics products, you need 20 megahertz. Our minimum requirements are 4 megabytes of RAM and 20 megahertz machines. And it has to be a 386 or such, but that's pretty standard for 3.1 stuff.
So pretty much, if it works with if you have a machine that works in Windows, this will work on it, no problem.
If you've got a real slow machine, any graphics will be kind of slow.
Right.
But, you can do it. I know people that do it 16 megahertz. But
Great. Okay, it's up on, I just said it's up on the screen. Okay, there it is.
We got it up on the screen.
Right.
Okay, I'll just start real quick here with flowchart. Again, the idea was we have this stencil, as we call it, and it's green there. It's supposed to give us a warm and fuzzy feeling because we've seen this before.
And we can use this ET effect. This is the ET effect where you have the finger. See, those are the stencils over there.
Okay. Right. Anyway, then since if we'd done our job right, we have everything right here that they'd need then to do flowcharts. And even though this is a drawing product, they wouldn't have to draw anything. And then the goal is to get what's over here onto the page really easily. And this is a finely integrated into Windows product, and we wanted to use the drag and drop metaphor and do it in a way that people would understand. These are pre-made. And they also have, I'll spend a bit more time talking about that later, but they also have intelligence in them. That's one of the actual things that makes Visio really easy to use. These shapes are a lot more than clip art, are a lot more than standard symbol libraries because they have some behavior. And
Right.
that's a little bit easier to show than it is to explain, but I'll get a little bit more into that later. What they should do is just behave in the way you expect, not
Right.
necessarily a way that's easy for a computer.
And you can make up your own too, right?
And you can make up your own and save them there, and I'll show that.
great.
So now I've got basically most of the shapes I wanted out there, and again, for connecting, I could draw lines between them, but we also have connecting things over here, and we even have some already that have
The little arrows and
yeah, let
everything.
me zoom in on this. I can zoom in right there and pull these guys over here. This is a decision diamond, so I'm going to take one with a yes and one with a no. And again, note, things are just snapping right on. You really kind of have to aim to miss. We're really trying to not require a whole lot of hand-eye coordination to do this sort of stuff.
Right.
And I can't say I'm all that great at it, but things snap together really easily. I'm not the most coordinated with placing things, particularly with trackballs, but you can see the things snap together really
So
easily.
when it's locked on that little point there, it'll move wherever you move it.
Yeah. And you may have noticed here that the lines went with it. When
Right.
when they went on it, they glued.
That's
Yeah,
great.
Exactly. So it makes it really easy to go.
Technical term there.
Glued. Exactly.
All right.
Let me zoom in a little bit closer. Another thing we found out is people were frustrated with how difficult it could be to put text in. A lot of times to put text on a shape, you had to go to a text tool and you had to create a text block, and then you put text in right there, and then you positioned it where you wanted it. Well, we wanted to try and get away from that, so we have really any of our shapes have text as a property. You don't even need to go to a text tool. You just start typing, and you just select it and start typing.
Oh,
So I
that's
select
great.
that, and actually if I want to go and re-edit it again, I just double click on it and I go in and say just select and start typing.
Oh, that's
And so then
great.
it's part of it, and it moves with it. And even if I wanted to go in and rotate it, not that you generally rotate flowchart symbols, but the text rotates with it.
Oh, I see. There was a little, up in the corner, there's a little rotate.
Yep, there's a rotate tool up
Command.
there. And one of my favorite commands is undo, several levels of undo, and I generally use the keyboard shortcut there because then when you make a mistake, you can go back. And
I was going to ask you,
Yeah.
you could do these with pull-down menus and with little icons.
Yeah.
There are little shortcuts for the keyboard.
they're generally, if you look on, as most Windows products
yeah.
now, you have a lot of standard keyboard
Right.
shortcuts for the most commonly used things.
I just like to always make sure people, because a lot of people don't even know there are shortcuts for Windows. They do every single thing. They don't know they can toggle things and use keyboard commands.
I can't say, I am a mouse person. I generally
Right.
use the mouse a lot, but there's just a few that are just so common that I use all
Right.
the time. Now let me just show, for instance, a couple other. I start to talk a little bit about some of the smarts. I'm going to delete that there and say we didn't want to use that kind of a connector, and look down here and we'll say, well, we have a number of different types of connectors we can use. And I'm going to drag this one out and drop them right here. If it's glued, I can see with that little red feedback, and I note that I've dropped it on here and it's glued now. Now this is a smart connector. This is something we actually created with the product. All of the shapes we have, the smarts they have in them, we actually do in the product. Most users should never have to go in and program, so to speak, their own shapes, but it's actually done just using standard spreadsheet functions. And I'll show a little bit later how we go in and make some smart. You see this connector, I mean, it's staying glued, so when I move it around, but it's also recalculating where it's going in, and it's doing these 90-degree cuts, and that's not hard-coded in. That's really soft, which means, one, we can have a whole bunch of different connectors. We even have a stencil full of different ones, and people can go in and create their own.
That's great.
So if I was going to explain a little bit more about smart shapes, let me take this shape right here and give an example. I'm going to draw. This is going to be a test here to see if I can do this very well with...
I'll tell you what, we're going to take a quick
Go
break
ahead.
here, all right?
Okay?
I want everyone to stay tuned. Don't forget the phone number is 861-6283. We're talking about Visio 2.0. Stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Here's one time it doesn't matter who your neighbor is. Here's the other. Life's too short. Stop the hate.
He protects all living things in the forest. But he can't do it alone. Please don't play with matches. Put out your campfires. I never, ever forget the words of Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent forest fires.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. In case you just tuned in, this is the American Computer Enthusiast Show, and my name is Steve Reeves, and I'm your host tonight. I'm here with Morgan Brown. He's the product manager from Shapewear Corporation in Seattle, and we're showing Visio 2.0, brand new, hot off the press, and we're actually giving away a copy tonight, some lucky caller. And don't forget the phone number is 861-6283, and this is a live show. It's October 14th, so it's Thursday. In case people didn't realize, we did switch again from Tuesday. We're going to be on Thursdays now forever, so don't look on Tuesdays anymore. 861-6283. We're going to continue showing the demo here, and then we'll start taking some. We already have people on the phones, but what we're going to do is continue this demo and see what he did well. See how fast he can be with his trackball here.
Okay. Well, I created a shape here. Basically, what I wanted to show is start to explain a little bit about what smart shapes are. To give an example, this is a shape that I just pulled here off of the stencil, and this is one I just drew really quickly. Now, if I grab this is supposed to look like a piece of ripped paper.
Right.
So you may have on your flow chart a number of them, and let's say you have some that are stretched out, and you want more text in them. Well, if you had gotten this, say, as a piece of clip art or a standard symbol library, if you stretch it, now what will normally happen in a drawing program is that'll stretch or distort. And if you have a number of them out there, you'll have ones that are looking different. Now, that's a simple example, but it's basic to show that we have some formulas underneath it that are telling it to keep its geometry the same. And I'll show a little bit later that that's not rocket science, and actually the ability to do those and create your own is really in the product.
Even I can do it?
Even you can do it,
Oh, that's
Steve.
great.
Yeah.
Okay, it must be simple.
Yeah.
All right.
No problem.
All right, what else you got to show here?
Okay, well, I'd like to go, I guess, to another, let me go to another drawing type.
All right.
And I'm going to call up, let's see, this is also new with 2.0, that we have English names, so we got rid of the DOS file name, so if we know we want to go and do, say, network template, it says network template instead of net VSS or something like that.
So this is actually one that you'd use if you were making up a diagram of a network?
Yeah, people got really excited about this with Visio 1.0 because it was really the easiest way to do this. Now notice here I did something that's also different with 1.0. I can collapse it down here just to the icons, and if I hover over it for a little bit, I can see I get
smart icons.
Smart icons, a hot cursor. Right. Same thing if I go up to the toolbar as well. I can see what these guys are.
Oh, that's great.
Some people really
want.
want.
People see that up there? Yeah, that's a little pointer. You like our pointer? It's great, huh? All right.
Some people actually wanted to work with names only. I have a hard time doing it that way.
Yeah, I like it better with the icons myself.
Okay, let's do a quick example here of what we could do with the network diagram. Now this, I think this is really slick. I do some of these. We've heard from a lot of people that just think it makes it a whole lot easier to lay out really professional looking diagrams.
Like a token ring? Is that what we're going to do here?
Yeah, I'm just going to do a real quick simple token ring. I should probably zoom in on this here. Let me just catch this whole area and zoom in about like that.
All right.
And see, if I select this token ring now, I can see I've got these green dots. These are control handles. That's something new with 2.0, that I can pull out some smart connectors just right out of the shape like that.
Oh, that's great.
And they glue onto it, and they don't show up if I didn't use them. Let me grab one more.
And how it erases it, but it's they're all going to the center of the circle there.
Yeah, they're all going to the center circle. So if I move them, which I'm going to pull out one more, if I move them around, it's still perpendicular to the tangent of the circle there, so it still looks good. And again, like all of our shapes, I can just select it and say this one, for instance, is marketing's token ring. And note, anytime I went into text editing, I get the whole toolbar changes. You basically have the editing features of a word processor. I can go in and pick my fonts and fiddle around with this. I'll go down and find my favorite font, Tecton. I love that.
So it makes it real simple.
Yeah. really easy to go in and edit, manipulate, and do the same thing with a bus and an Ethernet, and we have mainframes and a lot of other ones like that.
So all the little icons, there's like a workstation, there's even a little pen computer, pen-based computer. Is that a Newton?
No, I don't believe that's a Newton.
Oh, okay. We just got to keep our Apple people happy that are watching.
Well, actually,
let's
could
just
well
say
be.
It's a Newton, all right?
Well, let's see. This one right up here. We'll hold it. Wait for it to pop up. There's Macintosh.
Oh, great. Well, let's put a
we've
Mac
got
over there
those.
to keep our Macintosh
those.
viewers happy.
Yeah.
That's great.
Actually, we go on and on. We have stencils because you could go on all kinds of equipment. We do sell products for more specific things, like for people that do a lot of network diagrams. We have a set of stencils that we sell separately. We go on basically like the whole IBM product line, DEC line, and we'll have all the compact PCs and stuff like that. Same thing with space planning. Even we can go into really specific engineering, like petroleum engineering or chemical engineering. Can't say petroleum engineering is our #1 seller, but I do know that companies like Exxon and Chevron and Meridian Oil and stuff, they're using it and they love it, and they can create their own and they can use those and buy them separate.
All right. I'll tell you what, we've got some callers. We've got the phones already ringing off the hook. So let's take some callers now.
Okay.
Paul, do you have a question?
Yes, I do.
Great.
I saw the demo at HAL PC meeting the other night, and I was really impressed with it, and I was glad to find out about the hot icons and the hot cursor situation. This is getting real user-friendly. Does that require you to write more code or better code?
Oh, I think it requires you to write better code. In fact, I'd say that's almost a contradiction in terms if you do the more code, because we're working really hard to, one, keep the code small and keep it fast, and two, there's a big problem, or at least let's say there's a lot of Windows programs out there that are eating up hard drives, and even if you're using double space, I don't know about you, but I can fill up my hard drive really quickly. So I'd say the challenge is double. The challenge is to keep the amount of code you have really small. In fact, if you do a minimum install with just a couple of the stencils we have, we're about 3 megabytes altogether. If you put all the stencils on there, we're up to about 12 or 13.
That answers my question, because we're all concerned about our system resources getting eaten up.
Right.
I've got an unrelated question if you have time for it. I'm looking for the fastest internal modem that you guys know about. If you have time to answer that later after your demo, I'd appreciate you addressing that.
All right.
Great show, and tell everybody to write to the mayor and our cable providers, because we want to keep our access channel.
Great.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks for calling.
Good night.
I guess the fastest modem I know of is, as of like today, that you can buy is a 14.4 internal modem. But I know last week we talked on the Help Show, we talked a little bit about the 28.8 that Hayes just announced. I guess that's probably the they were showing it last week at Networld. I guess that's probably the fastest thing you can buy, right? We're asking James over here, our network guy. 28.8 it will be out. I don't think it's officially out yet though. But 14.4 is pretty much the fastest thing you can buy right now. Is that not true? January, the 28.8. I know Hayes, they're calling it VFast is what they're calling a 28.8. All right? Thanks for calling. Let's take another call here.
Okay.
Marvin, do you have a question?
Yeah. How much would a system like this cost? The one that you're demonstrating now?
The product Visio 2.0?
Yes.
Well, Visio 1.0 sold, had an SRP of $299, so you could find it in the stores somewhere around $215. We're actually doing an introductory price with 2.0 for 3 months until the end of the year at $129, and that's about what we expect it to be in the stores for. So
pretty good deal for $129.
If you were a 1.0 user, then you can upgrade for $79, or actually if you bought it after August 1, you get it for free, but it's generally in stores at $129.
Hey, let me ask a question here. I'm considering going into the T-shirt and fashion printing business, and what type of a computer would I have to purchase in order to enhance my, my design, what I want to put on my T-shirts and whatnot?
That's sort of a hard question to answer. I mean, it depends on what you're going to be using to do and do it, what you're going to be showing or what you're going to be using as software on the computer. But like we were saying last week on the Help shows, it's usually whatever you can afford. I mean, nowadays the price of 46s have come so far down, it's it's almost not worth it to buy a 386 anymore. But I guess it depends on what kind of software you're going to be using to, like if you're going to be using some sort of a graphics, some sort of a graphics program, I guess. You
Well,
know.
if he's going to be using some sort of graphics, then there are certain hardware requirements that you want to look out for.
Right.
And you may even want to consider there are certain people that feel like Macintosh is still the better product,
Right.
the better platform for the graphics, although I think they're getting
Macintosh, yeah.
really
Right.
close together. I think Windows is getting pretty close to the Macintosh now.
But it really depends on what you're going to use as software,
Right.
depending on what platform it's available for, Macintosh or PC.
Right.
Okay,
All right.
very much.
Thanks for calling. Just real fast, what are some of the differences between Visio 1.0 and 2.0 so that
Okay.
people know that, like, for example, I have 1.0. Why would I want to upgrade? What's the differences?
Okay, well, well, if I list them off, there's like 3 areas we made some pretty big changes in. One, the whole idea of the product was in usability, and now that we had a 1.0 out there, we've learned a lot. I mean, we've listened to a lot what we heard from customers, and we've gotten a lot better. The whole thing about smart shapes, as I've started to explain there a little bit, is we've gotten a lot better at making these shapes. We can give them a lot of behavior, and we've tried to anticipate how people are going to use them. And I think people that have used 1.0 will notice a big difference in the shapes, that they
Right.
function a lot better. Another really big development effort on our part was OLE 2.0, Object Linking and Embedding. It's a standard from Microsoft for how programs interact with each other. And we're really big on it and excited about it because we think it's really the big step in the direction that you can really pick and choose from different software components, get them to work together. So you mix and match. Say you have your word processor, you have your graphics, you have your spreadsheet, you have your desktop publishing, and you can even integrate them, and you have essentially it's a little bit farther in the future, but you essentially have one type of an interface, and OLE 2 is really the enabling technology right now for that. So we
Right.
did a lot of development with that. And since we're a graphics product and we need to really work real well with word processors, for instance, want to be able to put then the graphics from Visio into your word processor really easily. And OLE 2.0 is the best way to do that.
All right, great. We've got phone. Let's take a couple more calls,
Okay.
and then we'll go back into
Sure.
the demo here. Chris, do you have a question?
Yes. How does this compare to Aldus 5 PageMaker or WordPerfect 6?
Well, WordPerfect 6 isn't announced yet, so probably can't say a whole lot about that, although there's been a little bit published on it. But PageMaker 5, both of those are actually products that we feel Visio is designed to work with really well. Both of those are products that have some need to integrate graphics into them. Now, I'm not sure exactly about PageMaker, whether they have what kind of graphics capabilities they have in terms of applets in it, but Word 6 or the Word products have pretty good little drawing applets in it. Visio is actually, it's on another category. You can do different kinds of drawings, more sophisticated drawings, a lot more easily. And again, it's the type of drawings that we're targeting at business users, doing things like flow charts, org charts, network diagrams, space plans, Gantt charts. You can do those then really easily and then integrate them into your PageMaker or into your Word or whatever your word processor, desktop publisher, spreadsheet, presentation products, as a matter of fact. A lot of people take Visio graphics and integrate them into that.
But you wouldn't want to use this as a desktop publisher or a word processing. This program, like you were saying, is built to be made to you work with those products. So if you had Word or PageMaker, you want to have this also to bring things in, and so you wouldn't have to, because you can waste a lot of time in PageMaker, for example, trying to draw something like this. I mean, you could probably do parts of it, but it would take you forever to draw these little things, and they're not smart. There's no intelligence to what you're drawing. And the same thing with Word.
It's actually a really interesting question because there's different ways you can go philosophically in how you want to design your software. You can go the integrated approach, and there are other graphics products out there that you can find where they have integrated desktop publishing features. They have integrated even word processing capabilities. They've integrated image editing. They've integrated charting. They've integrated presentation. And that works for some people. Our feeling was you probably already have the word processor you want to work with, and you're not buying Visio to do word processing with it. Ditto basically for desktop publishing and even presentation. So our goal is we want to do the drawing really well. We feel that's a really interesting market, and we need then to be able to work really well with those, with your word processor of choice.
And you do.
Okay. Thanks.
Great. Why don't you go ahead and continue your demo?
Okay. I'm going to show here a little bit on space planning.
I'm sorry.
Oops. I think space planning is actually a real...
Thanks for your call, by the way. I just hung up on him.
This is a real interesting example because it's something quite different from flow charting and some of the other diagrammatic things, but it shows that we can actually do scale drawings with Visio. And if you use Visio for your flow charting, you already have all the skills you need to go and do some space planning. And You don't have to have specific knowledge on a complicated CAD product. It's all very WYSIWYG. It's all very manual. Things snap together really easily. If I zoom in on this, you can see, for instance, that that window there just went in and blocked out the wall, and I can stretch it out and get a different size if I want, and go back and get the whole view.
It doesn't line up with the table, though. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I'll go back and line it up perfect later.
I give you a hard time, you know.
Even dropping doors in, they just automatically go over there.
Automatically cuts the wall and puts the door in?
Now, this is a good chance for me to show a little bit more what I mean with smart shapes. Let me drop in a little bit of modular furniture. I'm going to zoom in here so we can get a better look. A lot of us probably work with this sort of stuff in our offices. Let me flip this vertical and get it in place. I'm going to grab a panel, go out here. These things glue together, and take it down here and snap it together. Now, let's just say we have this kind of desk corner piece for our cubicles. Let me copy that one, put them up here. Again, things are snapping together pretty handily.
Right.
I'll do a flip vertical, so I've got it in the corner, and see one more, and I'll drop, be done complete there. Now, this corner piece right here, this little piece of I'm going to select the other one, that one right there. Now, you can probably find that in a symbol library somewhere in a lot of CAD products. But the difference is really here. What happens if I grab this end and stretch it out? Now, what would normally happen with this, if we can use our sophisticated pointer or whatever, but this would elongate and the whole thing would distort, and it really wouldn't be useful for me.
That arc would be all out of whack.
Is we make it so that only the part stretches that really makes sense in this case for it to stretch, so that I can really use these, and we thought about what sort of behavior we would expect them to do, not necessarily what would be useful or easy, or what would be easy for a computer to do. Let me pull a couple other things out here, like a PC, make this look like an office. I'll show we do have rotation tools, and if you note at the bottom of the screen here, you can see what the angle of it is. If I go out further, I get it in more precise scale.
That's great.
This is good enough right here. Let me grab a chair and drop him right here. I can use the rotate tool. We also have one of those control handles I can rotate it with there.
Oh, that's great.
Now,
so you don't have to go up there and hit it then?
No, for that case. We're still kind of fiddling around with all the things we can do with control handles. I'd like to show how we add one, but this, I'd shown where we used a control handle. Again, these are new with Visio 2.0. It's just really, it's sort of an enabling thing for the technology of making smarts. We showed before where we used them to pull out smart connectors. Well, in this case, we're using it to change the shape, say, of this smart shape. Like, this is still a smart shape, in the sense that I drag this out again, that corner piece stays in there, only that table part of it. But I can get the kind of corner piece that, say, we have in our office, and then I can drag it back to the stencil and save it and use it again and again.
Oh, chamfer. Yeah. That's the technical term there, chamfer.
A chamfer.
A chamfered corner.
Right. That's right. You came from the CAD world, didn't you?
Right. I'm a CAD nerd.
Okay. Now, we don't target that we are, and we hadn't really talked about what other competitive products we don't target this as a CAD product, but I have spoken with a lot of people that say they had used CAD products for this sort of thing before, but either it was overkill or they didn't need it, or the smart shapes made it a lot easier to do it with this sort of a thing. Let me just show, in this case, we have something like, you need to have your filing cabinets, you need to see where the drawers come out. Well, here we have a control handle you can pull out and
that's pretty cool.
That way.
That's great.
Again, my favorite command is undo or step back.
Oh, that's
go back through here.
Too. Okay. This is a great program.
Yeah, one thing a lot of people ask when you see things like scaled drawings, like, okay, so do you have a dimensioning tool? I go, well, we have a dimensioning shape right over here, and I will bring it out, and I'll pull it over here to show actually the number does change dynamically as you do it. It was 4 feet, now it's 8 feet. But I also want to point out there's nothing specific about that. That's actually pretty easy to do in any shape we have. If I grab a desk here, for instance, and say, I wanted to know the width of that thing, I'll just type in width, equal, and then I'll go over here. People may be familiar that have worked with Word and some other products that have insert fields. You can insert intelligent fields, where you can do, the time you edited it and name of the file and things like that. Well, we also have it with the geometry. So I could go in here, for instance, put in the width and get in whatever units I want and just drop it right in there. And now my table is a dimensioning line. I could have it do the angle, I could have it calculate its area, all kinds of things like that.
That's unbelievable. That's great.
Great.
I mean, there's some CAD programs that don't even do that. A lot of them, actually.
Well, there's actually, like I say, there's a lot of CAD, if you go in high-end CAD features, we're not even trying to do. But really, if you start to scratch what you can do with some of these
Right.
smart shapes, it's really pretty exciting.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, let's take some more phone calls. John, do you have a question?
Yeah, I had a question about the templates that he was building, the generic templates.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
One, if you can close those off, how do you get do you need an SDK kit to create an icon for that to be over there?
No, that's a real good question. In fact, glad you reminded me, because I'm gonna pull up real quick and show really how I would do it. In fact, at the same time, what I'd like to do is show how we. It's going to be a little bit long-winded way of getting back to answer that, but you can really take any shape you create right there, or even modify any one of the shapes. Just drag it right back to the stencil, and it's saved there. Or if you want to open up a brand new stencil, drag your favorite shapes from a variety of different stencils, and then save it as its own file, its own template. You can do that as well.
Oh, so it's like a miniature version of your template?
Yeah.
Could that be done?
Well, actually, here let me just draw real quick here an arrow, and I'll show you that I would. Now, let's say I didn't have the right kind of arrow I wanted to save here, so I'm going to draw one real quick. I'll use it later to show a little bit of a demonstration.
All right. So you're drawing your own little symbol.
On my arrow, and trackball, I didn't get it exactly the way I wanted it.
That's close enough. I won't tell anybody.
Close enough for government work.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay. Well, anyway, if I wanted to save this guy, and I can just take him and grab him and drag him and drop him back over here onto the template, right like that, and then use him again and again.
Wow.
So
That couldn't be much simpler, could it?
No, that's really nice.
Pretty cool,
so,
huh?
no, there's no SDK per se, although I would say that, as I mentioned before, we're really just scratching the surface of what we can do with these smart shapes. Now I want to go a little bit under the hood here and show the technology of how I would make one of these smart. And we do have a technical reference manual for how to develop these smart shapes, how to put in the formulas. We do it using standard spreadsheet functions, and there's a learning curve to doing that. We're not aiming at having 95% of our users ever do that, but there's probably somebody in the office that's interested in it, can create some specific smart shapes and share them with other people there, or develop them and even sell them on their own. We've had a number of people interested in doing that. So we may have an SDK-like thing going in that direction eventually.
All right. Hey, thanks for calling. All right. Let's go to another line. Cliff, do you have a question?
Yeah. How you doing?
Oh, I'm great.
Good.
How are you?
Good show again.
Oh, thanks.
A question on the smart shapes. The question is, if you have something like WordPerfect or your other processor that you use and you import the stuff, do the smart shapes still stay smart, or do they become fixed when you import them?
Well, if you import them into Visio, or you import them from Visio into WordPerfect?
Import from Visio into WordPerfect or
okay.
other.
If you're importing into WordPerfect, you have to import it into some sort of a format that WordPerfect understands.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, and in that case, I mean, we can do that. We have a number of ones, but in that case, it really, no, it's not. It's going to have the smarts for whatever the format is that it arrives in. But actually, though, with Olay and Olay 2.0, in many ways, you really don't need to do that. WordPerfect doesn't support it yet, but they probably will be sometime within the coming year. And even with Olay 1.0, you basically can have your Visio drawing in there in that format, and you keep all of the smarts with it. And anytime you want to change it, you just double-click on that, use it in Visio.
Pops right out.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's what I was thinking about with the Olay stuff was whether or not it fixed the drawing when you imported it, or whether or not it still went back to the original.
Well, the thing with Olay is you're really not doing an import or an export. You're doing an embed or a link, which means it's really still attached to Visio. If it's a link, then it still lives in that Visio file. If it's an embed, it lives in that, say, WordPerfect file, but it is an embedded Visio object. So anytime you double-click on it, you call up Visio and you work in Visio.
Okay, well, that's what I was thinking. But
Right. I'll tell you what, we're going to have to take a quick break here. When we come back, we're going to show some Olay. Well, we'll show some Olay, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
He protects all living things in the forest. But he can't do it alone. Please don't play with matches. Put out your campfires. And never, ever forget the words of Smokey Bear.
Only you can prevent forest fires.
There are countries where bread is scarce, but this is America. Countries where electricity is rare, but this is America. Countries where infant mortality is a problem, but this is America. Here, it's a crisis. Every 13 minutes, another infant dies. But we can help prevent many of those deaths with prenatal care from programs like Healthy Start. Find out what you can do. Why? Because this is America.
Remember how good it felt the first time you gave 5? Well, now there's another way to give 5. Set a goal to give more, 5 hours a week and 5% of your income to the causes you care about. It'll make you feel like a winner every day of your life. So give more. Give 5.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the show. In case you just tuned in, like I say every single time, this is the American Computer Enthusiast Show. My name's Steve Reeves, I'm the host, and we're showing Visio 2.0, brand new, hot off the press, and our guest tonight is Morgan Brown from Shapewear Corporation in Seattle, Washington, and we're showing all kinds of great fun stuff. We actually are giving away a Visio 2.0. If you can see that all right? You see it? Great. This is what we're giving away. I have to make the cameraman move around. Anyway, some lucky caller will win that. And they said we need to mention for customer service and things like that, the phone number is 800, I'll mention this a couple times, 1-800-446-3335. That's 1-800-446-3335. I'll mention it again a couple of times. But anyways, what are we talking about is, you're talking about the...
Well, I'd shown how we did that arrow. What I'd
Right.
like to do is take a quick look under the hood at where that technology, the underlying technology for the smart shapes come from.
And then we're going to talk about
And then
Olay.
we're going to do an Olay.
So everybody watch.
Okay.
We're going to be, like my finger there. Watch, don't turn the channel. We're going to be showing Olay too.
Okay, if we go here on screen again. Now this is that arrow I created really quick. It's not smart in any way. It's just like if I'd pulled it off of a symbol library. Now to give an example, I'm going to create a couple copies of that, and let's say we had some that are short and we had some that are long. Well, we're going to get that sort of an effect.
Right.
I'm going to zoom in on this over here and say, well, that's probably not what we wanted, to have arrows that looked like this and arrows that looked like that. So let me move this down right here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go under the hood here and I'm going to open up what we call our shape sheet. It's basically a spreadsheet that's behind every shape that we have. And I'm just going to do a quick example of how I would give that arrow a little bit of intelligence and make it useful. Now this isn't, I wanted to point out it basically just to show that it's not rocket science. Really do it with standard spreadsheet functions. In fact, we copied, or we're using the leading Windows spreadsheets functions, a subset of them, so there's a lot of people out there that already know how to do this. Now what I'm going to do is I can see over here on the arrow where I am on these X and Y cells here. If I, for instance, oops, I wasn't putting in the error. I wasn't done with that yet. Here, let me just finish that. What I wanted to do was show, going here, if I look on the arrow, where I am on that.
Oh, I see. It's moving around on the arrow here.
I'd started to type in
There's that pointer again.
formula. Now I'm going to go back to that formula, so I'd started to do when I jumped around, and say I'm going to tell that arrowhead to always be the same size as this one up here. And if I look up there, it looks like it's about 1/4 of an inch back. So I'm going to say, just stay always 1/4 of an inch in size, no matter how much I stretch the thing. Pretty simple formula. So I go and I just type width minus 1/4 of an inch, takes it in lots of different contexts. Now when I hit enter, it's going to move that X coordinate. You see that on that arrow. I go do it again for those 3 other points, but I can also just do a cell reference. So I'm just going to go equal, go back to that last guy, and notice that it's moving all those points then. I didn't have to retype in those functions. So now if I go back to these guys, get rid of these dumb arrows, so to speak, move him up, make a quick copy of him like that, and so now what happens if I stretch some of them around? I have more consistent looking arrow, and I would say that's probably a little bit more useful.
That's great. Too bad you can't, make everything intelligent that fast. Right?
Well,
like
now,
my dog,
Yeah, right. Yeah. Now it takes a little bit also to make smart shapes and give them a lot of intelligence. For instance, the arrows we have probably have a lot more sophisticated stuff in them that allows for all kinds of different cases. I think really for creating your own smart shapes, it's not that tough, but we found, you know, creating something you're going to call a product and think of all possible cases where something can go wrong and bug-free. It's a pretty significant development effort.
All right. You want to take another? Let's take another
Go
caller
ahead.
while we're on here. All right, we have Lynn. Do you have a question?
Yes, I do. I understand that this is Windows for IBM that you're using now. Is that correct?
Right.
Does this come in a Macintosh format?
I told you someone would call and ask that question.
It's a good
Well,
question.
you know, Macintosh was first with all this
Right.
Windows stuff.
That's correct.
I knew someone would call with that question. You got to see my list right here. Look, it says Macintosh. Available for Macintosh? I knew someone.
Well, we're working on a Macintosh version, and we aim really hard at corporate accounts and see ourselves as being a, you know, a business, and we've had a lot of success at becoming corporate standard in a lot of business environments. And a lot of them are interested in having cross-platform, and we will have a Macintosh version sometime next year.
Good. Now, when I first tuned in, you were it looked as though you were designing office space. Is that correct? Office furniture or something?
One of the main product itself ships with actually 20 stencils. There's a fairly wide variety of different drawing types you can do with it. Things like flow charts, org charts, space plans, network diagrams. Now, the space plan requires scaled drawing. In other words, you actually have the page that was up there on the screen was 44 feet wide and maybe 30 feet high, something like that. And we actually do scale drawings. You can print in various scales, have the page and whatever. So we do facilities planning, space planning, even home design. We have special stencils for that.
So as long as you have the dimensions already, you can go ahead and fit the furniture in with that particular program.
Well, the furniture that comes on the stencil, for instance, already has its dimension and size. You can change it if you want, but it comes with default dimensions and size. If you change the dimensions of the page, then actually the shape will pop in at the correct size. If it's a 4-foot chair, for instance, it'll pop in at 4 feet, which may be a big chair on your screen, depending on what scale, or a very tiny one, depending on whatever scale you have.
It looked a little difficult to me. Now, you say anyone that can use spreadsheets. I have difficulty with spreadsheets myself.
Okay, so, well, you were looking in there when we were going. What I was trying to do was go under the hood a little bit and show how we would make some of these shapes smart. I would say for 95, 98, maybe 99% of our users, they never will go into that spreadsheet. The point was I was just showing that where that intelligence came from, the fact that how we can make the shapes behave in certain ways. And actually what we use to develop it is just right there on screen in that user interface. It's not part of an SDK, it's not part of C coding that we have done. So anybody who buys Visio really has whatever they need to create these shapes. But no, the average user is not going to go in and have to even mess with that spreadsheet at all.
All right.
How quickly do you expect the Macintosh to come out?
Right now, I can't be any more general in saying next year. I would expect it a little bit sooner than later next year, but I can't be more specific than that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hey, thanks for calling. But the nice thing about having be able to do the spreadsheet part of it and those kind of things is that, you know, a lot of products you use them and you can't do anything else once you've learned them. It's like endless what you can do with this. You can always do something, make new things up and change things around. And it's like an open-ended product. It's almost like open architecture.
It is like an open architecture because you have everything in there you need to do it. And you know, as you mentioned before, buy it for one thing. We have a lot of people who buy this for flow charting and then find they can do everything from maps, how to get to the company picnic, or how people get to their office, or Halloween parties, right. It showed me a great map on how to get to Steve's Halloween party next week.
I hope nobody heard that. No, I'm just kidding. Wait. Be 10,000 people at my house. Yeah, the other thing is, while we're talking about real fast, because he brought up something, I don't know if I thought of it when he said it, is output. What will this go out to?
Basically, we say this will output to anything you have a Windows 3.1 print driver for. So really, it should go to anything.
Any
we
laser,
test it with everything. We haven't found any problems
plotters,
with it.
like Hewlett-Packard plotters, anything, any driver that comes with Windows or anything that's available from CompuServe.
If you hear a problem, I mean, let us know about it, because we test it with a whole bunch of them. We haven't really found big problems with any of them yet.
That is one thing that I was going to say, was that there is a CompuServe forum for Visio, and it's you can just type Go Visio.
Go Visio and then Shapeware, and you're there, yeah.
Right, and it's in the Windows third-party D, as in dog, forum, but there's all kinds of fun things. As a matter of fact, I downloaded something last night which was dinosaurs, and it was all a bunch of dinosaurs and all kinds of wild things that are the shapes on the side were dinosaurs. You just drag them over. So even kids can use this, even though kids like me.
Young at heart. Yeah. We have aftermarket products for lots of actually different things. I think there's like 18 for a lot of different engineering things, and one of them is actually for kids, because we found out that one, if we could also convince people that it was easy enough for kids, and that business executives would feel comfortable
Right.
with it. But we have ones for lots of different types of engineering and home design and things like that.
Right.
We were going to go and show a quick example of Olay 2.0, and this
Great.
is actually kind of fun because this is new that you can actually do this in public. You need at least 2 products to do an Olay 2.0 decent demonstration. And,
Right.
Publisher came out a little while ago, and they function as an Olay 2 container. And Visio just started shipping 2 weeks ago, and it functioned as a container and a server, so we can do a decent demonstration. What I'd like to do right here, in fact, I think we're in Publisher. I think what I'll do is also start by calling up Visio. This shows what all is registered on to serve as an Olay 2 object. And this is so far very similar to Olay 1.0. In other words, we come up here, I'm going to do something with a network. It brings up a network template. I'm just going to do something real quick to show. Let me pull over an Ethernet, drop it right here, and just put 1 or 2 PCs in. And just head right back over to Publisher, and a server, close it down. Now this is then going to do an embed within Publisher. Now so far that's really the same what you do with Olay 1.0. There wasn't too much difference. Now what's exciting about Olay 2.0 is what we can then do now. I actually have a number of things embedded in here, and that's sort of what Olay 2 promises. You're document-centric. You can really work in your document and not have to hop between different applications. So what's new here is what happens when I double-click. If you note right now what's on the toolbar. This is Publisher's toolbar. This is Publisher's menu. Now, I double-click on Visio. Keep an eye on that toolbar. And what's going to come in right there is Visio's going to come in and take over the toolbar. I'm still in Publisher. I'm staying in place. And the menus are actually a mixture of Publishers and Visios. So now if I use Publisher Zoom, I'm going to zoom into where I want to be to work on this network diagram right here. Zoom in right here. I'm right in place. I can see where it is within my Publisher document.
You're going to get real upset, but we're running out of time.
Okay.
But people got to see that. We only got to touch the surface of Olay, but they can sort of see what's going on. What we need to do real fast is do the giveaway.
Okay.
Pick a number between 1 and 7.
3.
3? Oh, okay, Lynn. Oh, we have lots of time? Oh, we have another break? Oh, never mind. We got loads of time. So we actually, okay, well, Lynn won anyway. Lynn won. But you got time. But we have to take one quick break? Okay. Well, let's take a quick break, and we'll stay tuned. We'll be right back just for a couple minutes.
October 1987. A small child is rescued from an abandoned well. No country comes to the aid of a child the way we do. Yet today, millions of children need our help, lost in an education system unable to prepare them for today's competitive world. Imagine if that same effort went into keeping the promise that every child gets the best education and has a future. Call 1-800-96-PROMISE for information on changing the schools in your community.
Because disaster strikes someone every single day, there's always going to be one more night someone needs food, shelter, and a place to rest. Please support the American Red Cross. Because without your help, one more night could be hard to come by.
Vince, that new dummy cam is great.
Yeah, it'll sure give people a whole new outlook on what it's like when you don't wear a safety belt.
I think they'll get the picture.
You could learn a lot from a dummy. Buckle your safety belt.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. This is the American Computer Enthusiast Show. My name's Steve Reeves, and I'm here with Morgan Brown from Shapewear, and we're showing Visio 2.0. And I wish everyone could have seen the camera guys and the floor director jumping around telling me we had more time. I thought it was the end of the show. Here I am just kind of wrapping things up and everything else, but we still have about 4.5 minutes. We actually have a couple more callers, but we're going to but Lynn did win the product. And one thing they're telling me to show the comment line. Phone number is 587-5369, 587-5369, and it'll come up at the end of the show. And but we're going to talk a little bit more about Olay. Okay, so go ahead and talk about it.
Okay, just on screen here to finish up, what I did while we were off there is I pulled up a stencil. We work with stencils, so even though I have this embedded drawing right here, I needed to pull up a stencil, and we do that right here with that little icon up there. And then I can go. What we're doing here is actually dragging and dropping across applications, because this Visio is actually a separate running Visio than this one. Publisher doesn't support drag and drop across applications yet, so I have to do it with two Visios, but that's how we do it right here. I'm just dragging from one Visio across Windows to another, and I dropped a PC right in there and did an automatic embed. So that's how we'd work with. Those are two of the big new things with Olay.
That's great.
The third new thing with Olay is Olay automation. In fact, in many ways, it doesn't have anything to do with linking and embedding. It has more to do with how you write add-ons or macros or even integrate products together. But the Olay spec has a standard scripting interface now, and it's really a way that for people who want to write macros or integrate products, they learn one standard interface. And what's more, there are then now programming languages that support that interface called iDispatch in the Olay automation. For instance, Visual Basic 3.0 supports that. So really, if you have Visual Basic 3.0, you don't even need to know that scripting interface. All we have to do is publish what we have exposed to that interface, which is really everything you can do with the keyboard and the mouse.
Right.
And it dramatically lowers the bar to writing an add-on, a macro, or even integrating Visio in some sort of a system solution. So we're really excited about that because we've had a lot of people interested in integrating Visio with their products, or even integrating their database with a graphical product, say pumping out information from your personnel information and having it automatically generate org charts. That's probably something you could do with Visio within probably less than a day's coding in Visual Basic.
Well, that's great. Yeah. That's pretty cool. So I think you pretty much showed us a little.
I've pretty much shown what I
We actually got time for a caller. If anybody, we'll take one quick call. Should we have time or not? 1.5. Okay, we'll take a quick call here. We have Brad. Do you have a question?
Yes. Could you display quickly just an example of the electrical symbols and the electrical charts you can put up there? And is there anything that he has about doing the schematic symbols for laying out printed circuit boards?
Okay. I can call it up real quick. What I have right here is I wanted to include something on the set of stencils that we put out in the main box to really sort of hint at what it could do technically, because so many of the aftermarket products that we have actually are very technically oriented for things like mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, petroleum engineering, chemistry, biotechnology, that sort of thing. This is not an exhaustive set by any stretch. I mean, electrical engineering, I'm an electrical engineer. It's a very broad and big field, but it basically just shows some of the basic logic symbols, a few of the standard semiconductor components. If I run through this here, it's really just sort of a basic taster or feel for what it is you can do in electrical engineering. We have a product called Visio Shapes for Electrical Engineering that actually consists of about 8 or 10 stencils for many more.
We're going to have to wrap it up here. Sorry to cut you off there.
Sure.
But I want to make sure we have next week's show is PC Games. The next week after that is Scanning, and then another help show. My name's Steve Reeves. I want to thank Morgan Brown. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, man.